What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another Delta Force video, and today I'm going to be showing you all what I take into consideration when I'm trying to build effective budget loadouts. Now, the term budget build in extraction shooters, it's often interpreted as just finding the cheapest attachments you can and slapping them on. But the principle I like to follow when looking at these types of loadouts is price to performance, meaning I'm not necessarily going for the cheapest item, but rather is the cost of this item justified for the performance increase that I'm going to get. Now, honestly, I could just sit here for days and make a plethora of videos titled, "This is the best budget, insert weapon name here, try it now, insane zero recoil surprise Pikachu face thumbnail." But for the sake of saving you time, I'm just going to go over one weapon build that I typically use in my budget runs. It's very cost effective for beginners and it has huge slang potential. And it's actually surprisingly become one of my favorite builds to use with my current play style. Now, before we get into the weapon build, if you want to skip ahead at any point, there will be timestamps in the description. So if you want to skip the weapon build and go straight to the armor, rigs, backpack, all that stuff, feel free to click ahead. Getting into the weapon build here, the Uzi has become one of my favorite weapons to use in Delta Force. Honestly, I just think this gun is very slept on. It's cheap, but it's very effective. Now, I've put a lot of hours into Delta Force already because I was fortunate enough to get into the early closed playtests. If we were still in the alpha build of the game, I probably would have been recommending something like the AKS-74 as it's unlocked right from the start, and it was actually really cheap to get the recoil done on that weapon. But in the current build of the game, I can tell you the AKS-74, the damage has fallen off and there has been a significant increase in recoil. Now, going over the parts here, I usually like to work from, front of the weapon to back. The two main stats that I typically focus on when building a weapon is the control and handling. So understanding what these stats do, obviously control is your recoil control. You're going to want to try and get that down because out of the box, a lot of the weapons when they're stocked, they have really high visual recoil. Now, weapon handling, however, this stat's going to affect your reload speed, ADS while moving, sprint to ADS, all sorts of that stuff. Now, I typically don't put too much focus into any of the other stats in here. Accuracy is your hip fire accuracy. Stability is just sort of flinch resistance. Now, the range and damage are self-explanatory. If you can get your effective range or your muzzle velocity up with certain attachments, go ahead and do so. But I typically ignore stability and accuracy because I'm not building hip fire builds and you're going to get flinched no matter what. Now, I usually throw the practical suppressor on here. I know you lose a little bit of control and some stability, but having a suppressor if you're trying to do loot runs is pretty important. If you're wanting to actually maximize the control, either of these two muzzle attachments is going to do you just fine. Now, moving on to the barrel here, I like to throw on the Quartermaster long barrel. Now, while this gives good control stat, it also as a secondary gives you range and muzzle velocity. So increasing the effective range of the weapon just a little bit while increasing the muzzle velocity, which basically is just how fast the projectile is going to go from gun to target. Muzzle velocity on high rate of fire weapons is just really underrated. It helps a lot with decreasing your time to kill. We'll get into the calibration after. I'm just going to keep going through the attachments. Now, the handguard that I pick here, it's probably your best budget option you're going to see on most weapons, is the performance handguard. You get a lot of recoil control out of it. Here, let's just remove it here and I'll show you. So as you can see, when we throw it on here, you get +8 recoil control and +3 handling, and also some stability and accuracy as some secondary stats. The downside to using the performance handguard is you're not able to calibrate it like you can with most of the handguards. Sorry, not handguards, but grips. So you do lose out on some calibration, but I mean, 12K for these stats, it's a no-brainer. So then you're going to want to throw on the 35 round mag. You could throw on the 45 round mag, but you just lose out on too much performance. The gun reloads fast anyway. A 35 round mag is going to do you just fine. Throw on your SMG mag assist just for a little bit more handling. Now, when we get to the stock, there's a couple of options you have here. You have the 416 light stock, which is it's usually the go-to. But a lot of times this thing gets upwards of 40 and 50K. I'm pretty sure we have an old Ender's weapon build to thank for that. And I mean, it's obvious because, it greatly increases your control and weapon handling. These are really good stats. And if it were below, say, 25K, I would say it's worth it. Another good option here is your Elite Light Stock. 16K, you get some recoil control and some ADS movement speed with an SMG, and ADS movement speed is really good. And you can get a lot more stats out of the calibration. Optic is personal preference. I just threw a hollow sight on here because it's like, hey, it's cheap, but I really do like this sight picture on, like, say, a quick response sight or a panoramic red dot, but you can really just kind of throw whatever you want here. A 1x optic, anyone's going to do you just fine. Getting into the calibration here, I've thrown the weight limit down for more ADS movement speed. This is good if you're in CQC combat. You could get more ADS speed. ADS speed's already really fast, so I decided to just add a little bit more muzzle velocity on there in the calibration. Like I said, you can't calibrate this handguard, unfortunately. That's the downside to throwing this handguard on there, but like I said, 12K for the stats that it gives you, it's actually insane. And then when we come to the stock, you throw the weight limit all the way up. That's going to give you more recoil control. And I also throw the placement all the way to the left for that extra ADS speed, just because firing stability is just kind of on SMGs. All right, so going into the firing range here, we have one target out at 10 meters and then the second target out at 25 meters. And we are going to be throwing AP 6.3 ammo on here. Now, both of these targets have purple ammo on there. Now, I'm just going to show you the time to kill. Like, you can actually down 2 targets with AP 6.3 that are wearing purple armor from a good distance. Now, the extra muzzle velocity and range that we're getting is definitely going to help. You're trying to reach out to like 25 meters. Obviously, your damage after 25 meters is significantly going to fall off on any SMG. It's just what happens. You really want to be cheeky, you could just equip 9x19 rip ammo and leg meta. It like, you know, the rip ammo is cheaper than AP 6.3. So if you're trying to steal armor from other players and you want to just leg meta them, you can throw some rip on there. No, Slump, I'm making a video. Leave me alone. Now, if you are looking for an AR build, I'm not going to go through it as extensively as I did with the Uzi, but I'll leave it up on the screen here. And if you're also wanting the calibration, I will just leave a link to this weapon build if you're looking for a cheap beginner AR. Now we're going to get into the rest of the loadout. Let's say we're gearing up for a raid here. Now, if you're really down bad, just run a recruit gear, man. Like you're probably not going to have a choice, but you get these gear set coupons pretty often, not just from the battle pass, but from completing tasks. So if you're really down bad, throw it up there. If you look down at the bottom of the screen, loadouts, you can click that or press L. Obviously, this is showing my previous loadout that I was using. Not that impressive. I was just throwing on what I had. You can actually save loadouts. So if you don't want to be that guy that all your friends are waiting on, like, oh my God, he's building a gun, he's got all, like, why does he not have his gear ready? You can literally just save a loadout, click buy, and it's going to throw it all in your inventory, apply it, like you're good to go. You're ready to go into another raid. Now, the main helmet that I run is the MC201. The reason I run this, obviously it's a tier 3 helmet, so it's not going to offer that much protection, but it's cheap. You can barter for it. The barter items are easy to find. You get some moderate noise reduction, so the noise that your PMC is making, you hear less of it, and you have a plus 20% hearing range. This plus 20% hearing range is huge, not just from targets at a distance, but CQC. I can't tell you how many fights I've won just because I've purely been able to hear and outmaneuver them. When I say I would much rather be able to hear than have something like, say, this iron helmet, which not only restricts your vision, but your hearing, I mean, I would rather have the MC201 than a helmet like that. Like, sure, am I going to take a hit to the noggin very well? Not really. But the hearing range is super important. I would even prefer, if I can't barter for this, I would probably just buy this outdoor baseball cap for 9K for 10% hearing range. Like, if you get hit in the noggin, you get hit in the noggin. It is what it is. This doesn't offer any protection at all. This T3 helmet offers minimal protection. You're going to take 1 or 2 shots from blue tier ammo, T3 ammo, but the hearing range is just insane. And I've got another little trick that I'm going to show you towards the end of the loadout that's going to make this plus 20% hearing range even more crazy. Now, getting into the chest plate, this is probably going to catch me some heat in the comments, but these purple vests, if I can loot a T4 armor off of an enemy in raid, I'll do it, but I typically don't buy these because the price, it just doesn't justify the limited protection that they have. Now, let me explain. Usually when I'm running an SMG, I'm close quarters. So even if I were to say run a purple armor over a blue vest, a T4 over a T3, this at within a 25 meter range, this is going to tank 1 more round of AP 6.3 than this one will, and it's more than double the price. So I don't think for more than double the price it's worth to just be able to tank more than 1 shot. Now, of course, some of these do protect your chest and abdomen. I'm recording a video, Slump, chill. The ones that do protect your chest and abdomen have some significant aim speed and movement speed debuffs. I'd rather take the 1% aim and 1% movement speed and able to move rather than maybe potentially being able to tank one more bullet in a spray. With a TTK the way it is in Delta Force, most of the time it's whoever's going to get shots on first is generally going to win that gunfight if you can keep your aim on target. So when I'm saying I'd much rather be able to move than maybe have a little bit more chest and abdomen protection, this is just typically what I run. 30k for a Havoc quick response vest, and then I'll usually try to snowball into picking up stuff off of AI spawns with purple armor in normal raids. So if you're trying to get loot in normal raids, you find one of these, you know, T4 vests on a scav, take it, and you know, your Havoc quick response vest has done its job. Moving on to cheap backpacks. I'm not gonna spend too much time on this because it's just bag space. Just go with your Rainforest Hunter backpack. It has gone up in price a little bit, but it's still relatively cheap. Gives you 21 slots. Plus, if you're trying to fit an extra weapon, like say you're already carrying a secondary weapon that you're trying to get out of raid, and you come across another weapon that you want to fit, there's no partitions in it. It's just straight 21 slots. Really good backpack to have. Now for your chest rig, 13 slot, 8K, G01 tactical chest rig. Anything else above that, you're going to be looking at paying, you know, almost nearly double the cost just for maybe 1 or 2 more chest slots. Now, as far as ammo goes, the ammo is going to be pretty expensive in the build. I usually run AP 6.3 because a lot of times when I get into a fight, I'm not taking another player's armor because it's usually cooked. Maybe I'll try leg medding in the future to preserve enemy armor, and you know, I digress. I typically run full, all 5 pockets full of ammo, but I mean, if you're really trying to penny pinch here, you can just fill up 3 pockets and try and pick up ammo along the way. Here's my med setup, having a surgery kit, 2 quick injectors, a normal heal, a bleed stop, painkillers. Painkillers is the important one on this. Painkillers are good if you don't have time to, you know, if you played Tarkov, you pop a painkiller, you're not going to feel, you know, your tummy hurting or your femur being shattered. These get you back in the fight quickly, and then if you know, take out the threat, move to a spot where you can do surgery. Boom. Some DIY helm and DIY vest. Want to repair your vest in combat? Just throw those in your prison wallet. Now circling back to what I was talking about when I said you can make this 20% hearing range even better. Stims, I rarely see anyone running stims at all. These blue grade stims, they're actually really cheap. So what I typically do is I run a stamina activator and a perception activator. Now these are cheap and they do only last 180 seconds, but I'm not using these to get out of a raid. I'm using these for the initial fights. Having a little bit of extra stam and stamina recovery and a little bit of extra hearing is huge for the first 180 seconds of a raid. I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but the majority of my raids, I am getting into a gunfight within the first 60 seconds. So being able to hear and outmaneuver them, I mean, this perception activator, it's just goated with this helmet. I'm even going to show a clip here of just how powerful this is because it is insane how much this perception activator works.
Keep the following in mind. Shoot, loot, then time to scoop.
Ooh, what's down here?
For any ailment.
Left. I just wiped a 3-man?
No way.
Yes. I need
Alright.
I need help. Now in total, the gun's gonna run you about 95k. So for a budget SMG that has a lot of slaying potential, that is really cheap. You can make, like I said, you can make it even cheaper if you take these off of AI enemies. They spawn with these a lot of the time. In total, the build is going to run you about 450k. I know that doesn't seem like, oh my god, 450k is a lot. I know I only have 570k right now because I've been putting like 3 million into my freaking hideout. It is like 450k is a cheap loadout in the grand scheme of things because you can easily make 500 plus k per raid. You don't have to go to Space City to make money. Like it's insane how much money you can make, especially with a 21 slot backpack. That is going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, please hit that like button. It helps me out tremendously. And also consider subscribing. If you yourself have other weapon builds that you'd like to show that you think are good, budget friendly for new players, link your budget build down in the comment section. Anyway, hope you enjoyed and found it helpful, and I will see you all in the next one.